Yon, good afternoon sa inyong lahat. Kami nga po pala ang Group 3 and today's video, ipapaliwanag namin kung paano nagbaband ang hydrogen bonding. And sisimulan ko to sa water. Alam naman natin yung hydrogen bonding is composed of water. Alam naman natin yung water is napakahalaga sa buhay natin. Ito yung nagbibigay sa atin upang mabuhay dito sa lipunan natin ginagalawan at hindi lang sa atin mahalaga ang water, pati na rin sa mga hayop and then sa mga halaman. And yung ipapakita ko sa inyo, ito yung nagawa naming 3D structure ng hydrogen bonding. Sana magustuhan nyo. So, ito siya. Ayan. Mukha lang siyang ulo ni Mickey Mouse and mukha din siyang mushroom, pero hindi po siyang mushroom saka ulo ni Mickey Mouse. Tinatawag po itong hydrogen bonding. So, papaliwanag namin kung ano nga ba yung hydrogen bonding. So, ayan po yung structure namin. Sana nagustuhan nyo. Ayan. So, start tayo. Water. We all know that water comprises of H2O, means that there's 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen that bound together. And then yung bonding na nangyari sa kanila ay tinatawag nating covalent bond. Huwag mo nang intindihin to Ito muna tayo sa gitna. Kunyari isa lang siya. Ito diba nga, H2O means 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. And this bonding, it's called covalent bonding. Alam naman natin na yung covalent bonding kasi napag-aralan natin siya in previous lesson natin na ang covalent bonding ay yung sharing ng electrons to another elements ng atom para makabuo ng 8 electrons or covalent electrons para maging stable sila. Yan, tinatawag natin siyang covalent bond. However, alam naman natin na yung oxygen has 6 electrons. And because of sharing nilang dalawa, may natitira pa ditong 4 na electrons kasi diba in sharing 1, 2, 3, 4. So means may 4 pa sa ilalim na electrons. So ano nga ba yung nangyayari dun sa 4 na electrons na nasa ilalim? We all know that electrons in nature are negatively charged. And alam naman natin na yung mga elements vary their level of attractiveness towards an atoms, and yung tinatawag natin na yon or yung concept na yon is tinatawag nating electronegativity. And napag-aralan na rin naman natin siya na nangangahulugan na an electrons attracted to an element that highest electronegativity means that electrons spend their time orbiting to an nucleus that has more electronegative atom, oxygen, and less spending their time orbiting to a less electronegative atom, means hydrogen. And because of the unequal sharing of electrons nila, tinatawag natin tong polar covalent bond. And since that electrons is most likely spend their time orbiting in an oxygen, means this oxygen has a negatively charged and this hydrogen has partial positively charged. And alam naman natin na ang polar covalent bond ay hindi lang yung bond na nangyayari sa water molecule. Kasi tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, an opposite attract. And because of this water molecule, kapag yung water molecule na to ay nagkaroon or nag-attract ng another water molecule, means that this oxygen, sabi ko kanina, has negatively charged, and this hydrogen has partial negatively charged. And tulad ng sabi ko, opposite attract. And kung makikita nyo, itong straw na to, ito yung nagre-represent or ito yung nabobuo between dun sa 2 atoms na yon. And ito yung tinatawag nating hydrogen bonding, itong straw na to. And kapag mas marami ang water molecules na nag-attract sa kanilang lahat, mas maraming hydrogen bonding ang magaganap. Ayan, kung makikita nyo, yung mga straw, yan yung tinatawag nating hydrogen bonding. Ayan. Tulad ng sinabi ko, partially positive and negative, opposite attract. Ito yung tinatawag nating hydrogen bonding. Yun lang guys, and yung ibang paliwanag ay ipapaliwanag ng aking mga kagrupo para mas lubos nyong maintindihan kung ano nga ba talaga ang hydrogen bonding. Ayan guys, ito yung aming structure. Maraming salamat.
So now, let's talk about what the mistakes or common mistakes that we can encounter in hydrogen bond. So hydrogen bond can be confusing, but hydrogen bond are type of intermolecular bond because it's formed between molecules. So now let's look at hydrogen bonds in some ethanol molecules. So ethanol is an alcohol, and if we could take a drop of ethanol and zoom in zillions and zillions of times, and this is what we see. So we see a bunch of different molecules twisting around in different orientations, right? So where are the hydrogen bonds in these molecules? So what I said earlier, intermolecular bonds or hydrogen bonds form between molecules. So this can be a hydrogen bond, this either, and this. The CH can be a hydrogen bond because it's in the same molecule. It's not between molecules. Okay? So in the CC or in the CC, it can be a hydrogen bond either because it's in the same molecule, not between different molecules. So that's the first important thing to keep in mind if a bond is in just molecule. It's not an intermolecular bond, and it's certainly not a hydrogen bond. So that means that the hydrogen bond has to be between different molecules. So in hydrogen bonding, in this case is H is connected to an O, is bonded to an O on another molecule. So this H is attached to an O, so it will form a hydrogen bond with this O over here. So I'll indicate this hydrogen bond with this pink little dots. Yes, that is a hydrogen bond. So this H connected to an O here can form a hydrogen bond with this O over here on this molecule. So again, I'll indicate this as a hydrogen bond with this pink dots. So that is hydrogen bonds. Okay, now the common mistake that some people make is they think that anytime that there is an H or hydrogen, it can form a hydrogen bond between molecules. They say there's an H here connected to the C, and there's an H and connected to C, so this can form a hydrogen bond, which is not. Okay? It has to be an H connected to an O bonding with another O in this case, in this example of molecule. So it can be this H connected to the C over there and H with the C. That's not a hydrogen bond. Okay? Another mistake is taking an H that's connected to the C and connected with an O. That's kind of half right, because in this case O's are forming hydrogen bonds, but if the H is connected with the C, it cannot form a hydrogen bond either. It has to be an H connected to an O, making a bond with an O in another molecule.
Okay, so now do you know how to find and draw hydrogen bonds? Let's talk about hydrogen bonds formed in the first place. Okay, so here we have two ethanol molecules, and they are gonna forming hydrogen bonds between. In this case, it's all about the O, which is the oxygen, and the H, which is the hydrogen. So, the O and the H in this molecule are connected to each other with this line, which indicates that is a covalent bond that holding them together. They are sharing electrons to form its covalent bond. So they are stuck together because they are sharing electrons. Here is the thing that I want to share, that they are not sharing those electrons equally. The oxygen will be called a higher electronegativity. All that means is when it shares with hydrogen, it hugs the electron. So, this oxygen is hugging those electrons. So it has a little bit of negative sign. It has a little bit of a minus charge, and this squiggle, this squiggle is actually a lowercase Greek letter delta. So the hydrogen here is getting the electrons hug away from it. So it missing those electrons. So it has lowercase, delta plus. Lowercase delta plus. The same thing here. The same thing here and over this molecule. Yung positive H ay maa-attract dito sa negative O, which is our oxygen, right there. Para ba siyang yung magnets na nag-a-attract together between the positive and negative. Now here is the thing. If the H is bonded with C, dito na yun Pag-connect muna natin sila. Ayan, parang magnet yan. Okay, so now here is the thing. If H is bonded with C, it will not form a hydrogen bond. Here's why. Because the C and H shares electrons evenly. So it is not possible for the C to become negative and the H to become positive, because the electrons are spreading equal time with both of them. So you don't get these negative and positive charges when an H is bonded with the C, since with no charges, the H bonded to C can form a hydrogen bond. So lipat po tayo dito sa ayan. O hugs electron from H. So it turns out that O and H are the only atoms that can form hydrogen bonds. Okay, we saw just a minute ago that O, when it's bonded to H, the O hugs the electron away from H. And it's not the only atom na pwedeng makagawa nun Lagay muna natin yung O when it's bonded to H. So the oxygen has a little bit of negative and the hydrogen has a little bit of positive charge. Yan. So sinasabi na hindi lang sila yung atom na pwede makagawanan. Fluorine also has a higher electronegativity, di ba? Alam naman natin. So, fluorine, pwede siyang is also able to do that also. So, the fluorine has a little bit of negative also charges, and the hydrogen positive. Excuse me. So, fluorine also has a higher electronegativity, which means it's like to hug. Which means it's like to hug the electrons away from the H. So, fluorine, when it's bonded to H, also has a little bit of negative charge, making the hydrogen get a little bit of positive charge. So, meron pa, nitrogen. Nitrogen bonded to H. Nitrogen too is also able to hug electrons away from hydrogen, so it gets some negative charge. Little bit of negative charge, and the hydrogen getting hydrogen positive charge. Okay, so they are the three atoms that can participate in hydrogen bonding besides on hydrogen, and they are the F, O, and N. If a hydrogen bonded to an F and O or an N, that hydrogen can form a hydrogen bond. So gamit yung tatlong yan, kailangan lang natin gawin ay i-attach sila or to be attracted to an atom or another molecule. So, dito sa O, pwede siyang connected sa saan? Sa F, sa fluorine. Kasi yung fluorine natin has a little bit of negative charge. Pero itong fluorine natin, pwede rin naman siya dito sa N with H and F with H. Pwede rin naman tong nitrogen. Nitrogen with a little bit of negative charge. Pero pwede na naman tong N sa O with H and N with H. And then lastly, so we have here the oxygen with a little bit of negative charge. So, makikita nyo na ayan ang hydrogen bonds natin, kung paano siya nangyayari.
Let us name hydrogen bonds. In order to name hydrogen bond, we have to follow this rule. Hydro plus name of the element plus suffix IC plus acid. So for example, we have HBr. H is hydrogen, which is always a positive ion, and Br is bromide, which is our negatively charged ion. Let us apply the rule given. So copy the prefix hydro, the name of the element which is bromide, but we are going to change the IDE of bromide into IC. So it will become bromic and add acid after it. Therefore, the name will be hydrobromic acid. Another example is H2TE. Same rule. We are going to copy the word hydro plus name of the element which is telluride, then change IDE to IC so it will become telluric. Then put the word acid after it. We will come up to an answer of hydrotelluric acid. Next example is H3P. So first, write hydro plus name of the element which is phosphoride, then change IDE to IC, it will become phosphoric. Then write acid after it, therefore, the name of the formula will be hydrophosphoric acid.
And the fourth example is HCl, which is hydrogen chloride. You can see that hydrogen is positive while chloride is negative. We can change IDE to IC, then it will become hydrochloric acid. The last example is H2S, which is hydrogen sulfide, you can see that hydrogen is positive while sulfide is negative. So we can change IDE to IC. Then it will become hydrosulfuric acid.